Hello. Today, I'm here to talk to you guys about racial states in Legendary Super Saiyan and what all that means, how they're unlocked, how they work, what makes them different than a alternate form, all of these kind of things. If you haven't already watched the trailer for the MP3 slash 1.2.7 update, I definitely recommend watching that because, well, it's cool and it does the reveal for these. But I'm going to get right into how they're unlocked. Well, to start regarding the unlocks, they're not exactly unlocked. You're not going to unlock Legendary Super Saiyan or, to start, there's 4 levels of each racial state for every race. You'll get Tier 0, which is base form, and you'll get Tier 1, 2, 3. So Super Saiyan 1, 2, 3 will be getting Legendary. We'll be going into how that looks and everything later for every race, but every race will be getting 4 stages of racial state, if you will. So the first 3 forms as well as base form. Why do they get base form? Well, that's how it's unlocked. Through doing MQ712, which is one of the new movies, Turtles. So the last quest in the Fruit or Tree of Might saga, you'll go ahead and unlock your racial state, and you'll be able to use it in base form. What does that mean? Well, we're gonna have to get into the mechanics to make that make sense. However, I'll kind of explain the unlocks as I'm going because it's not quite super simple. All I'm going to say is that's the only quest unlock, and every race shares that quest unlock, whereas to unlock Tier 1, 2, 3, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Alright, so now covering how you unlock the different tiers. Again, base form will be unlocked from the quest, as we just talked about. Tier 1, 2, and 3 will all have their own unique unlocks. Obviously, the requirement there being you have to have unlocked racial state in the first place. That's, access to the power. You'll also have to have level 2 of the form, because, I'll get into it more later, but their level is 1 below your actual form. So Super Saiyan, if it's level 2, Legendary can only get up to level 1. And so on and so forth, meaning they cap at level 5. Technically, they have leveling. We're going to talk about that later. But how do you get them? Well, it's not going to be a quest. It's not going to be any of those things. When you transform, you have a small chance to get put into Legendary. Not actually into Legendary, but just flickering into it on a visual level. And again, I want to mention that I'm just saying Legendary is a generalization. Every race will do the same thing, just to clarify. But you have a chance to flicker into it. You have to flicker into it 3 times. However, transforming is not the only way. Another way is when you take damage. So, Broly would get pissed off if he's being hurt and he'd power up. That kind of thing was applied to how it could be unlocked. So with that in mind, as your HP gets lower, you have a higher chance. Obviously, these chances are going to be low so they don't happen literally your first fight or your first transformation. But the chances are going to be in such a way that it can happen frequently enough that it's not impossible, but it's you got to go a little out of the way. But then again, these are both going into a form and just taking damage are pure gameplay things. You're going to do it at any point. So just be in Super Saiyan is the only thing, right? Like Super Saiyan 2, and Super Saiyan 3. Now, getting into how it plays. What makes this not just an alternate form or like Kaioken? Well, Kaioken and the alternate form are obviously different. Racial states also need to be different in our eyes. We did not just want to add an alt form and call it Legendary and, end it there. Because if you look at Metal, it's just a glorified alternate form that gives you more multi at the cost of drain. That's cool, but there's a lot more that can be done. And what we came up with was something called the Surge Bar. So up by your health bar, you have this little meter that fills up as you're fighting, as you punch, and as you take damage. This meter will build up. Basically what happens is it goes from 0 to 15% as it builds up. And then when it gets to 15%, it will jump up to 30, doubling. And so when it's at 30, it will just go down. It will just, there's nothing you can do to change that speed. It's just like a little duration bar. And then when it gets to 0, it starts going back up again once you fight. That's it. So it's just this up as you build it, and then it goes down. Up, down. Just like that, so you fluctuate constantly between 0 to 30% power. Making it pretty complicated to actually understand these forms' strength. It's going to be a lot about how it feels. Okay, how does full power Super Saiyan feel versus legendary, right? And obviously you have to put that investment into legendary leveling it, the same way you do any new thing with a progression system, right? Can't just use Kaioken. You actually kind of can. Moving on, so Surge Bar will be for every race. Obviously, a lot of the inspiration there was Broly, but we believe it's general enough that it can kind of be put onto these other races and still feel like a great mechanic at its core. So talking about how XP is gained, pretty simply, you know, I mentioned before, it's capped based on your actual form level. So each form, Super Saiyan, well, if it's level 5, I can only get to level 4 because it's just one level below, and that's how we did it. So it will cap at level 5 if you had level 6 Super Saiyan. Obviously, you have to put XP into this. How do you get XP? Do I need to farm some souls or something? No, you just use the thing. It's not passive XP like Kaioken. However, it's more like active XP. Actually, you use it and you get XP while fighting, while building your surge. In any way, you're just going to get a little bit of XP. Small amount, mind you, but this XP will just build up and you'll eventually level it by just using it. So we wanted, you know, this update had a big emphasis on fixing up some mastery bumps and making everything just feel better and smoother. So we definitely didn't want to add racial states in the same update and then make them an annoying grind that is an entire extra path of tens of hours of grinding. We didn't want to do that to you. So we made it just XP from the source. And obviously all of these numbers are subject to change. I should have mentioned this earlier, but that 0 to 30% thing, that we might change it throughout testing. We're still going through rigorous testing to make sure that everything is perfect and that these numbers are where we want them to be for gameplay balance. I'm not going to show too much of their multipliers and stuff because those are still very subject to change. Just know you could expect it to kind of work like an alt form in terms of its power, but then with the added benefit, obviously there's going to be more drain. This is not an alt form where you just get a free buff and it's objectively worth using. There's going to be cost here. There's going to be drain from the form. There's going to be, obviously, the fluctuating multiplier that makes it, you're not just always going to do that damage. You're going to do that damage, but also it could be up here. So it makes it a little bit more nuanced, and you have to put some thought into it. Obviously, we'll be rebalancing this as needed, both in testing and once it comes out for you guys, as we get feedback from you guys on a wider scale than we could ever from testing, of course. So that's how XP works. That's how the leveling works. That's how its scaling sort of works, briefly, of course. Let's get into the visuals of the form. So with Human, we actually had some interesting inspiration. Our direct inspiration was from Johnny Silverhand of Cyberpunk fame, or John Wick, whichever you prefer. Additionally, the way the Human augmentation visual will work is in base form, you're going to start with a fist, and then tier 1, you know, the buffed form, you're going to go ahead and get your wrist going up to the elbow. And then in tier 2, you're going to get it all the way up to the shoulder, so you got the full arm. And tier 3, the final state of the racial state, you'll get across the chest, a nice little, like, kind of like mount for the arm, if you will. So a couple other things, you know, it has some glow effects, the little lights. Those are based on your aura color, so you have control over it in the sense that it will look unique to you, and not everyone will have the exact same metal arm. But it will glow as your surge builds up, and it has a little breathe effect. So as your surge builds up, it will just look cool, and you'll be able to see it in first person. It's nice. So for base form of the legendary racial state, we wanted to make it just look like you're in your base form. You got this green glow, whited out eyes, simple, right? And then tier 1, we went with Broly's, I'm not sure what they call it. I believe it's false Super Saiyan. It's where he gets that blue hair, like he's Super Saiyan flickering into legendary. So we wanted to do that for him, where he's in that form and he has the green aura and all these things, all of its glory. And tier 2, that's effectively more legendary Super Saiyan. Like actually the green hair and everything, more of those legendary visuals, strain and everything, like little vein marks is what I mean by strain. And then tier 3, we did not absolutely at all want to do Super Saiyan 3 with green hair. Sometimes it looks cool, but frankly, the Super Saiyan 3 hair is a little underwhelming in a way that we don't think this form would look beautiful with it. So we went with just buffed up legendary as it was on tier 2. We buffed him up more. We gave him lightning. We gave him more strain. We gave him just everything that you'd expect from legendary. This is pretty much every tier 3 is the racial state as we envisioned it, and everything else is building up to that. With that in mind, we did we were like, okay, let's call this Legendary Super Saiyan 2, but no, we just decided let's call it Full Power Legendary Super Saiyan because, or Legendary Super Saiyan Full Power, one of the two. We didn't want to call it Legendary Super Saiyan 2 when it's the Tier 3 Legendary stack. Felt a little confusing, so we wanted to just make that abundantly clear. So, Namekians, we decided to go for a dragon aesthetic inspired by Eastern dragons. Obviously, Namekians created Shenron and all of that, so they're kind of adjacent to it in that way, and we figured that's a good path to start going down. Sort of how Namekian Primal does the kind of sort of being a little bit of a dragon. It's weird. It's not exactly, but they got Dragon Balls and stuff. So we figure Racial State's perfect time to go into this dragon lineage, in quotes. Rook himself designed the scales off of his own bearded dragon, so he had real inspiration from it in that way. So the scales gradually build up, starting at your chest, or not your chest, just your general body on the back, like a spine. They build up onto the arms, onto the legs, and then finally the belly, and then the face. Providing a pretty cool visual, to be honest. You know, all plated up, suit of armor. Next up is Arcosian. So Arcosians, very simply, they're still metal. They just got a visual overhaul in that sense. However, obviously they have all these new mechanics applied to them, but beyond that, the visuals are going to be as follows. Base form will just look like, you know, its first form in visuals. So base form will just be what you'd expect. First form with the metacore, aesthetic. And then second form will just be second form with the metacore design applied. Third form, same thing there. You know, third form in all of its beauty, looking like metacore. And then finally, you'll be fully chromed up by the time you get to final form. So that will provide a you'll be shiny. Cool part about that, we actually took Cooler's color scheme in character creation. You know, the blue beans notably. We used the blue bean color to get the minty, whatever you want to call that color. It's like blue green chrome color for Cooler. So we did that, and that's the offset applied. So if you had red beans, you get a nice like pastel kind of red vibe going. So yeah, you can look like a different chrome than everyone else. Moving on to Majin. Majin, well, when Toriyama originally created them, they're pretty well genies. Majin Buu was stored in a ball and summoned by a bibbidi bobbidi. Like, it was pretty well inspired by the Arabian Nights genie, from as far as we could find. So we figure the genie, like, Majin was one of the ones we had a lot of trouble with, just because, like, Majin was like Kid Buu, and it's like, what else do you do? You know, or like Majin was everything we saw in the Buu saga, and that was kind of it. So we came up with this genie idea because that was what Toriyama's Majin was kind of inspired by. So we're like, let's tie all the way back into this. So we give them these golden, what the fuck do I say? We're golden what? Alright, so we decided to give them these golden bands. They got them on their wrist, upper arms, and feet. So they're effectively shackling them, holding their power back, almost inhibitors, sort of like what Broly had, ironically. So as you go up, base form, you have all of them on. You get all these golden bands. And when you go tier 1, you know, Evil Majin, Genie, you'll get the wristbands coming off, and you'll have smoke coming out, because, you know, Majins emit smoke. So there's be this little animated smoke trail around your wrist. And then you go to tier 2, Adult Majin, you'll go ahead and get the feet ones doing the same effect. And then you go to tier 3, and finally, the top ones come off, full power Genie, right? You get smoke trailing up the arm and an animation looking sick. I think, all things considered, we went through so many designs of these racial states. It was like we worked on them for over a year to get to where we finally were. And yeah, I think there were some pretty inspired designs. So one thing I do want to mention, the pretty cinematic you saw at the start of the video, they all look different. Here's some screenshots of all of them. The main difference is you'll get some different text for the unlock, which you'll only see when you unlock a racial state, right? And for each of the different tiers, you can go into the cinematic whenever you please. There'll be some differences, mostly just the color changes. Making an entire different cinematic for each race was sort of out of the question for now. So you can play the cinematic again once you get to racial state level 3. So you'll see it in when you unlock both racial state base and tier 1, 2, and 3 individually, but you'll also eventually be able to replay it by just the current way we're doing it, which might subject to change, of course. You hold shift, and then in quick selection, it will tell you right click 3 times. So instead of right clicking 2 times to instant ascend, you right click 3 times, again, while holding shift, and you'll play the whole cinematic. You can also fast forward the cinematic by just holding the ascend key, which is right click by default. So yeah, you know, you'll have a great way to replay the cinematic at will, and you can just choose to never play it if you feel like it, which I totally understand because it's a little long. Well, thank you guys for watching this devlog. I will mention that if you guys have any feedback, while we might not be able to make huge changes to the racial states at this point, we are always willing to tweak these things, whether it's this or that. I know I didn't go too much into scaling because we're still in the testing process, making sure everything's perfect in these last few weeks before the release. So I want to just make sure we have plenty of time here. But also, if you guys have any like huge things you hate, let us know. Even if we can't change it right now, I'd love to hear your feedback, good or bad. Just let us know, and maybe we can accommodate that. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for watching the trailer. If you did, if you haven't, you probably should. It's pretty cool. But thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys all for your patience. We'll see you guys soon. We're working the best we can to make this September 20th release date. There'll be maintenance a few days before that, just to make that clear. We'll be announcing that in due time, though. So thank you for watching. Peace out.